Anyway, Jimmy, you said you want to talk about something?
Yes.
A conspiracy thing?
Right. Yeah, I have a... I've watched this Flight 800 documentary, and I know all the people on Twitter are hitting me up going, the official explanation. I know. I used to do a bit on the official explanation. I believed it. With the fucking, they said the front of the plane, it was a center fuel tank explosion, sparked, and then the plane blew off, and then what people saw going up was the plane rising for 4,000 more feet because the engines weren't affected because the front of the plane flew off. So people that thought they saw something rising was either a reflection off the water of something falling, or was the fucking fuselage rising for 4,000 more feet.
And of course, this is Flight 800 that
yes, of course,
flew up over Long Island, right?
But I know eyewitness accounts can be
17
flawed.
years ago, by the way.
I know. It's fucking. I cannot believe it's that long. 96. Wow. But I know eyewitness accounts can be wrong. Yeah. But when I listen to these people describing...
Who are these people?
Just local witnesses, Long Island, regular folks, and I listen to them describing the treatment they got from the FBI.
Yeah.
And what they saw, and the official explanation, and I just believed what they said.
Yeah.
Sometimes when people are talking, and then they're like, well, the explanation said... And the guy's like, no, I saw it. It came up from behind the house, and it zigzagged, and it curved, and it hit it. And there's certain radar images that they finally had to sue for everything. Like, this is what drives you crazy.
Yeah.
Is they had to sue for every bit of information, like radar information and all this stuff under Freedom of Information Act.
Well, when the FBI is doing the investigating, obviously they're going to classify a lot of stuff. For what reason, I don't know, but it's not just the NTSB, it's the fucking FBI. And when you have something that they're not sure if it was terrorism or not, obviously the FBI is going to get involved.
Sure.
So, it's not out of the realm of reason that they would handle an investigation that way.
But when you see what was classified, like the speed at which some of the debris shot off, there were certain things that I was like, ugh. And again, I know a lot of this has logical explanations, but the eyewitness accounts of a lot of different people that were out that night that saw something going up into the air, and none of them were called to testify. Like that, really, there's certain things that really bothered me about it, and I just didn't like the way. I don't know what the motive of that would be.
What the motive would be. Also, you cannot like the way the investigation's handled, not like the way they followed up with the witnesses and whatnot. Sure. And that doesn't necessarily mean that there's some kind of sinister
Absolutely not.
plot happening. Also, the lead up to it, the fact that it was on the runway for a while.
Yeah.
All that lead up stuff, is it just coincidental that the chances for an accident like that, for a fuck up, whatever you want to call it, corresponded with a purposeful downing or an accidental downing of this plane with a missile?
It could have been something like, I don't think it was a big government conspiracy to do it. I think it was either somebody...
Thank you, Sydney.
Thank you. Just so she brought me coffee.
Sydney!
Sid!
How do you know their names?
How do you not?
It might have been somebody on a boat. It might have been a shoulder launch thing. That's, to me, is what it is. I don't understand.
Why would anyone take responsibility for that, though? Because that, especially back then, that was a big fucking deal.
Right.
Why wouldn't they come forward and go, yep, we did this, motherfucker?
And why would the government want to hide the fact that
that's all stuff I don't. I believe me, I don't understand that.
Yeah, if there was a clear-cut motive, then you could be like, like 9/11 conspiracy theorists. Well, Bush wanted to get us into a war, so there was his opportunity, and that's why he and the rest of the government conspired to blah blah blah. But this. What's the end game?
Even maybe not saying it's a cover-up. I simply don't agree with their conclusion.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason I can see them, but then somebody raised a great point. Why would Boeing co-sign for that? Because they're liable.
Right, it makes them liable.
And why would TWA allow for that? I mean, we were shot down in terror. It ruined them.
It ruined them.
So there are people who would have stood up and been extremely vocal about it. So there are flaws in it and holes in it, and that's why I'm not an adamant. But watching this, the eyewitness accounts are very hard for me to write off because people are not. that fucking dumb. I know people are dumb, but a couple of hundred people that say they saw something going up and then an explosion is hard for me to write off.
But when you look at eyewitness accounts, are usually the most unreliable things in any investigation.
Yes.
It's amazing.
They can be. And I account for that. But there was just so many of them. And I think we all have a common experience, and we know what a fucking... Everyone said the same thing. They thought it was fireworks going up.
Yeah.
And then they saw... And then they're like, well, did you see the explosion? And then it go up. They're like, no, I saw the thing go up and it explode. And it's like they're sharing an experience that I think... And that's the hard part for me. The physical evidence, look... I'm sure somebody could spin it both ways. Like, as smart as you are on this side, you got that guy who's that smart on that side.
Yeah, sure.
I don't see a huge motive for the government to cover it up, so I have a problem with that. I'm simply having a hard time writing off and listening to these people. If it was 2 people that saw it, but when it's this many people, and they're all, again, people could have a mass thing where they think they remember things a certain way, and then they hear you say it, they go, oh yeah, that is what it was. I know that happens too.
The thing is also, you're talking about a major metropolitan airport and the surrounding areas where there's a huge population, a lot of witnesses. So if you say there's hundreds of people that saw something a certain way, there's probably thousands that saw it just like the government says it happened.
But are there?
I don't know. That's just it. Is that covered in here? Are they clipping out the fact that a lot of people said that they saw exactly what goes with the official explanation, or are they saying, well, there's, this many people that said this happened? Well, offsets it by the amount of people that actually said it happened the other way. I don't know. And by the way, I've not seen this yet. Jimmy was kind enough to lend it to me. I'm going to see it tonight.
It's out next month on Epix, and they just sent me a copy. I just came home and I had a package from them, and it was this documentary. It's not out yet.
You checked it out. Well, you got the phone's ringing, man.
But
Matt's saying you're missing out on some info here.
I very well might be. And again, I'm not fucking... But hold on. There was one more thing I wanted to hit before we go to him, and I forget what it was.
Oh, shit.
Shit. All right, maybe I'll remember. Okay. No, I'll tell you.
You sure? Okay.
Yeah,
Matt in Tampa. What's up, Matt?
Tampon.
Hey, buddy.
Hi, Matt.
And to your question as to why the government would try to cover this up, there's a book written several years ago by an author by the name of Jack Cashill, who documented this entire thing before obviously the documentary just came out. This was something that Bill Clinton, who was in the middle of running for re-election, he could not have this. Now, there's some speculation as to whether or not it was shot down by the Navy, or if it was shot down by the Navy while they were trying to get another smaller plane that was attempting to fly into that flight. Remember, this was terrorism in its infancy, and they were just beginning to realize that there was a problem with Islamic terrorism coming over into this country. That's where I'm not sure the documentary, the book, really ever are able to establish what shot it down, if it was a terrorist, shoulder-fired missile, or something from the Navy done by accident, but this was not. It was not anything where it was a mid-tank fuel explosion. That has been refuted by many experts, and those eyewitnesses you're talking about, Jimmy, there are over 200 of them, and if you read Jack Cashill's book, they document how the FBI intimidated, completely ignored what they said, changed what they said.
Well, I'll just to jump in for a second. See, this documentary, one thing I did like about it is it doesn't even get into, well, Clinton or this and that. It doesn't get into any of that. It really does stick mostly with eyewitness accounts. And then you're watching these, again, and I know people are boobs, but when you're watching regular citizens and they're all saying the same thing, they're like, the FBI came, and I told them what I'm telling you, and the guy said, no, you didn't see that. And it's like, and when enough people say that, it becomes problematic for me to ignore it.
That's exactly right. Just remember, Bill Clinton, it was 8 years of having Al Capone as president. So if you don't think that he would be willing to have something covered up like that, come on, you guys know.
But again, I'm a big believer too in major conspiracies. It's hard to pull off because there's just too many people involved. But when you hear the people that are talking on this, they're former, the guys from the NTSB. They're not just a bunch of crackpot teens who spliced together news videos and went, what does that mean? He winked.
Loose change.
It's not that shit.
It's not loose changey?
No, these are a much more legitimate, knowledgeable people who were investigators. There were people who were investigators on this that have a major problem with it, and I give them a tremendous amount of credit because they're not saying that this whole thing was orchestrated. They're just criticizing the way the investigation and the evidence was handled. And they were saying that they had it color coded because of where the pieces fell. And they said there was a guy, they were noticing that certain colors, like there was, I think, a yellow, a red, and a green, say, which shows you a part of the Long Island Sound, where the ocean that they fell into, which it gave you where the plane part came apart.
Right.
And they said that they were noticing that certain tags, the colors were changing, and so they installed a hidden camera. And there was somebody from the FBI coming in, and they said he was changing. They don't know what he was doing, but they were like, they think he was changing the color codes because certain color codes, like if something fell here, it was a lot better than if it fell here. So
it would jibe with the story more. And I just the official story.
But again, I know that that's a lot of people to get involved. I have a problem with.
Conspiracies that involve more than two people. I start having a.
But I didn't like the people that wouldn't come on camera and be interviewed, and I just didn't like the official explanation. You know, I understand. I believed it when it came out, but when they showed the CIA animation, they're like, why did the CIA get involved? Why? This was an NTSB issue. If it wasn't terrorism, why is the CIA involved? I mean, and then the guy who made the CIA video wouldn't be. Too many people. I understand why Clinton wouldn't come on the dumb documentary, but that I get.
Right.
But there were certain people who should have come on and talked about it that wouldn't.
Well, a lot of people agreeing with you that they think the plane was blown up. Matt, thank you for that call. Very good.
Thank you, buddy.
We got Mark in Armont. Mark.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hey, well, I hope Armont doesn't get mad that you're marking him. Go ahead, Marky.
I just wanted to make the one point that you were talking about the center fuel tank and the short circuit and why Boeing would sign off on it. Boeing has so many military contracts, and they make billions of dollars off the government. I hate conspiracy theorists in general. I think they're all assholes, but it just...
That's a conspiracy.
I can almost see, hey, go along with this scenario. Maybe it's not 100% there, but, you know, you're going to make $5 billion on the Raptor contract or the Joint Strike Fighter or the missile system. There are billions of dollars changing hands between these companies.
What dark room did that conversation happen in, and how many people were there, and did they tell their wives? And that's what gets me about conspiracies is people can't keep their fucking mouths shut.
And I don't know if I never saw this documentary because, again, I cringe every time I think of, like, the Loose Change documentary.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
They're so off base, it's insane. But, you know, you just think about it. It's like maybe it's nothing that sinister. They said at one time they had warships in that part of the ocean at the time. There's that whole theory that maybe they accidentally shot down the plane.
Or what if it was... let me jump in for one. What if it was... I thought of this. What if it was... And again, I don't know how weapons on ships work. I don't know how that happens. But can one guy or two guys get that done?
Rogue?
Yeah, but I mean, let's say it was one or two guys on a military ship who were just either fucking... for whatever motive they had to do it, they did it.
I don't think it's anything sinister. Don't get me wrong. I mean, let's say they did the investigation. They think that, you know, it was the center fuel tank. Hey, let's make a reasonable conclusion here. You guys sign off on it, and we'll guarantee $10 billion in contracts for the next 5 years. Or if it was an accidental firing of a missile off of one of these ships. I mean, they do battle simulations all the time where they're actually pushing buttons in these control rooms. Who's to say they didn't accidentally fire a missile?
Because they fired, I think more than one went up, and there was... I believe, and they were saying that it might have been a thing that exploded right by. It really, whatever it was, it makes you feel so terrible for those fucking poor people. And that was a horrible death that they experienced.
Of being in that plane when the entire fuselage broke off.
Broke off, dude, and fucking, and they weren't. I mean, some of them were killed. They said there was something about the randomness of the of where people who should have been burned. By their seats weren't.
So they're thinking like that. That the explosion would have happened outside the plane instead of inside, not above the fuel tanks where they should have been burned. They said the randomness of it. Like if it was the center fuel tanks, people in seat 15D and E and F would have all been burned. Right. And they said a lot they weren't. Some were, some weren't. It was a really weird, random.
Phil in Georgia. Georgia. Excuse me,
Hello.
Phil.
Hey, last night, I think it was on O'Reilly, they had that guy, the medical examiner, what was his name, Bodner?
Michael Bodner.
Oh, God, that ghoul.
Yeah, Michael Bodner.
We've had him on a couple times.
Love that fucking
He
vampire.
loves death. Loves it.
He was part of the investigation team on that.
Of course he was.
That at the very last minute, there was a box of corneas, for your eyes that was put on the plane at the very last minute, and they just put it up in the cockpit, and they thought maybe that had something to do with it at the time, but he didn't elaborate on what.
Wait. What, a box of corneas?
Yeah, it was like medical supplies. I didn't know it was corneas.
Medical supplies. They were going over there, and he said some of the people actually drowned. They didn't die from the explosion. They actually drowned. So.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You survived that, now you're in the water drowning?
But do you think they were conscious, though, or is that just the final cause of death?
Oh, yeah.
How did the impact not kill him? Falling 13,000 feet?
Crazy.
They didn't address the medical supplies in that documentary, though, Jimmy. That was my.
Wait, why? What would medical supplies have to do with anything?
They threw it on the plane at the last minute, so they're wondering if that had something to do with this.
Oh, you mean like a bomb?
Yeah.
Oh.
And they threw it in the cockpit? Is that what they usually do?
Yeah, not now. They might have.
What? I don't think there'd be room in the cockpit to throw a box of medical supplies in there.
But you know what?
But they're saying that's exactly what happened.
Oh, maybe. So maybe it was a bigger box because it had to be cooled, or maybe it was a big metal box. Like, you can't just put corneas in a shoebox.
Right.
Some candy corneas.
Those you can fucking eat until you're shitting blood, Comia. God damn, do I miss Halloween. Chipper, stop eating candy corns. Your farts are frightening the dog. Lamar don't like it.
Shit, Jesus. All right, brother. Thank you for that.
On the heels of all this, I was watching Skyjacked last night on demand, an old 1972 Chuck Heston movie.
Oh.
Just watching those old movies, no CGI, so every scene of the plane was an actual 707.
Sure.
With just soot blowing out the engines. You realize remember when you used to see a plane flying and you'd look up and just see 4 distinct black trails of smoke? They really got pretty good with getting the pollution leveled down on those. But funniest part, he's in the cockpit. They're ready to take off. And he's firing up the old throttles. But before he does, he's lighting a pipe. Right in the cockpit, he lights his pipe while he's on the runway, right before takeoff. He's got a pipe in his mouth. He puts the throttles forward. The stewardesses were all sexy. They're like, "Hey, honey." The guy had to open the door for the stewardesses, and he's like, "Hey, girls." Called them like girls and sweetie. Just harken back to a better time. And then one of the passengers was pregnant. Of course, it's one of those movies. And she goes, "Could I have a drink?" and the stewardess suggested, milk or something like that. She goes, "I'll have a Bloody Mary."
No kidding.
No shit.
Wow.
Oh, the good old days. Miss it.
Let's say hi to Matt.
Fetal alcohol syndrome.
Yeah. Matt, what's up, buddy?
How you doing, guys?
Hey,
all right.
I had a similar story to Jimmy. I don't know if you guys remember Flight 587. It went down about 2 months after 9/11.
Yeah, over Queens. Yeah,
of course.
Off to the Dominican Republic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was going to the Dominican Republic, but yeah.
Right between me and my family. Like, it was 2 blocks from me, 2 blocks from my family.
Okay, yeah, American Airlines.
My mother watched the whole thing. FBI interviewed her. She saw a fireball in the sky. I've heard this from numerous people. FBI, with the guy I went to high school with, the FBI guy, came interview her. As soon as she said that, he closed his book and said, "All right, thank you very much," and that was it. Never heard from him.
Well, and that one's been really fucking confirmed that was a fucking the horizontal stabilizer, the vertical stabilizer came off, just snapped off. Because the guy was working the fucking rudder too hard. I guess the policy back then was if you got caught in the jet wash of something and you couldn't really stabilize your plane, you just kicked the rudder over one side real hard. And the whole thing was made of carbon fiber, ripped it right off the plane. And once that's gone, you're fucking done. And
how high up were they?
They had just taken off, so they weren't very high up.
We were at a from JFK. So.
Yeah. But they found the vertical stabilizer in the water with all the bolts just ripped out. It was very obvious what happened to that plane. And even then, though, you'll see people like, there was a fireball, there was an explosion, this happened. When you have these catastrophic failures in planes, sometimes you're going to get something that looks like an explosion
Could
or
be
a
smoke or
fire.
smoldering, yeah.
It could, yeah. There's a lot of instruments, hydraulic fluid, friction. There's a lot of reasons that something can look like it's on fire or exploding when really it's nothing that sinister.
Well, the documentary's got legs, so people are talking about it.
I liked it very much, and again,
Thanks,
I wouldn't. I would want to hear somebody refute it point by point, and there may be somebody who could do that. I'm not married to it. It was compelling because I know how I feel about conspiracy theories, and I'm very doubtful of them normally. I'm like, oh, shut up. But these were reputable people being interviewed, and they all knew what they were talking about. And that was hard when you hear. I don't care how ex-NTSB people, they understand how an investigation should be conducted.
Sure.
They understand what evidence means and what these things mean on a plane. And they were the ones talking in this documentary, and the other people, the ones who were testifying before whatever, weren't coming on and talking. And they did get one guy on who I think believed the official explanation. They were asking why certain tests weren't conducted, or, and he had really no reason for it. So again, that could just be selective editing. Who knows?
No,
but watch it.
You believed in like a second gunman theory
for many years.
For many years.
Sure.
And then now you absolutely just think it was Oswald. So,
yes.
I mean, your opinions on these things can change given more information when more information comes
That's why
out,
I hate conspiracy theorists who are married to it.
Right.
Because it's like, to me, you've become the cause.
You'll take facts and squeeze them into what you want it to be.
I have no vested
buy into loose change at first.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did. And then you know what? No, not like that. I bought into the Pentagon one was like made me question. Did I buy into it and think no? But the Pentagon one I thought was interesting. I'm going to start talking about it on the air, and that's where we get all these conspiracy theories.
Right. And then once you talk to them, you were like, "This is nonsense.
These guys are assholes." And then when I heard other people refute it, I'm like, I just believe that guy. And with the Kennedy stuff, the more I read about it, and the more technology. Like when they could really zoom in. There's something called Black Dog Man in the JFK photos in the grassy knoll. But there's some computer stuff they did now. They said he would have been 2.5 feet tall. And I see how the conspiracy theorists reach for stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not the way I try to examine stuff. I try to be logical, and they're just simply not logical. And they have that little white spill. No, you just don't. All right, you lost me, shit dick.
That's the part where their stories really come apart. When you get an explanation from them, and it's so outrageous, and the actual answer is so simple. You gotta default to the simplest explanation.
And they never say, "Oh yeah, that's true."
Yeah.
Never did these guys say that because their agenda is the conspiracy, and that's what drives me. Because my agenda is not. If someone had a really great answer for all these eyewitness testimony, said, no, here's exactly what that was, I would at least listen to it open-minded.
You got questions.
I have questions. I'm just saying, we don't really know what happened.
You know who else has questions?
No, I don't. Oh, I see. Let's go to John in AR. John in AR.
Hi, sure.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, good morning, guys.
Hey,
What's
John.
going on? Hey, I don't know the flight number right now. I just heard you guys talking about the one that went down after 9/11 over New York.
Yes.
I'm kind of a conspiracy guy, a little bit, not too much, but I've heard the one, and it sounds kind of plausible, that the one that blew up was technically, they were saying it was the first shoe bomber. And
I thought of that too, yeah, maybe.
We've been in the second bomber. So I don't know if you guys have heard that and what you thought about that. So
that was what I thought when they said a fireball. I'm like, I wonder, looking back on it after Richard Reed was arrested on that flight from Paris, I'm like, I wonder if that was a shoe bomber. Like, did that do it? And they just, who the fuck knows? Maybe 800 was a shoe bomber, but I guess
when you
no
look at
that.
Like the flight data recorders and stuff, not even just the voice recorders,
right.
It shows the position of all those instruments. And if there's a plane and he's flying into a jet wash, which he did, and he's trying to correct, and all that's going on, and coincidentally enough, it's at the same time some guy wants to blow the plane up. You got to take all the facts and put them together. You can't take the facts and try to mash them into what you want it to be. So, I mean, that's a prime example of how some conspiracy theories can just be ridiculous.
But I don't believe the whole fucking jet wash thing. Why don't they just do that on the ground?
By the way, Vicodin in full effect.
Wow, really?
Holy fuck, am I hammered. It didn't affect me last night this much.
What are you feeling?
I'm like, woo.
Oh, nice.
Like it's good. Fucking nice buzz.
Anthony, though, you don't really know.
No, you're tough to figure
Try
out.
not.
You don't really know. You know how you know when we fucking flip on certain websites and he goes, that's racist, man.
Yeah. Why can't we all just live together?
He's loaded.
Right.
Let's do the test after the break.
Right.
Let's go to a few websites and see how hammered you really are.
I feel a really good buzz right now. Yeah. It's like all of a sudden I turned my head and it went like,
How are you going to drive home? You can't drive home like that.
yeah, I can.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
I'm fine.
Can we play the hot dog lady? That could be an Opie and Anthony nugget on the podcast down the road.
I was listening to that
In honor
fucking
of-
porn. The porn that with the nugget, the old porn bit, the fucking 8-track porn. God,
That's not a
fucking
nugget.
Damn, that wasn't that.
That's a
it
whole
was a
fucking bit.
Get the fucking podcast. That is a funny fucking bit, man.
A lot of people saying the 8-track porn bit is hilarious. It's on the latest Opie and Anthony podcast.
Yeah,
Go
I gotta
get it
listen to
now,
that again.
please. Patrice O'Neill in studio for that one.
Well, for one of them.
Right.
Just get ice cream sandwiches for breakfast. Getting all fucked up eating ice cream sandwiches.
What?
I had 3 bites yesterday and threw it out. And you know what? Got to go see the trainer again today.
I start rehab on my shoulder today.
Oh, what did they say when you went yesterday?
I got an MRI, and now I just wait.
Oh, you
But the
don't know.
doctor already thinks it's a torn bicep and a torn rotator cuff.
What do you got to do?
I've been in agony
rehab?
for fucking 6 months. What?
What does rehab entail?
You know what?
I wish you'd asked that question years ago.
That's a great question because the doctor also he's one of the best in the city. He's a sports guy. He works on
Sports guys.
He works on athletes, like guys that you know, and that's what I'm confused by because I'm like, oh, that means surgery, which I was scared of. He goes, no, I don't think so at all. I think we can handle this with rehab and all sorts of shit. So. Hopefully.
You'd assume doing nothing with it would be the best thing.
Right.
Just leave it alone.
I really don't understand what, physical rehab's going to do to help a torn bicep muscle.
And
obviously it's a slight tear.
How did you do it?
I don't know. Wear and tear.
Yanking that big cock around, I bet. Hauling that giant cock out, showing it off.
Hauling it out.
Hauling it out.
Yeah, why don't you pull your big prick out and stick it in my shitter, honey.
Mine plops out like that snake did after it opened the door.
That'd be great if you could open a door like that.
Right. Yeah.
Thud.
Yeah, that's how Opie was. He throws his big cock on the fucking back of the door handle and it slowly opens.
They could talk to your cock. Good boy.
Yeah, boy.
I don't know. They get like deep massage, and that gets the blood flow going, and that helps heal it. And and then like shoulder exercises.
Now, if it was,
but I had a fucked up right shoulder 5 years ago, and this thing is fine, man.
Yeah.
This left one is way worse.
If you had a choice between rehabbing it for a year or having a surgery where in 2 months it's done, what do you do?
Surgery scares me always.
Yeah. You never want to opt for
that.
They
put me out when they fucking put the pipe down my throat.
Oh,
that makes
sounds great. It doesn't sound good.
When I was dealing with some acid reflux, which just magically went away, by the way. I'm totally fine on that front. Ooh. But I got everything checked out. And when they give you that propofol and you realize, oh my God, there is no afterlife. That's a real bummer.
Oh, shit.
Because why wouldn't your brain still be kind of somewhere in there?
Right?
They could kill you within seconds, technically, and then you wake up a half hour later and you have no concept of what happened. That makes you question what the fuck happens to you when you die, doesn't it?
Are you trying to freak my buzz out? Jesus, dude. You're a real bummer.
Well, explain that one.
Don't be a bummer.
Explain propofol.
Well, that's what happens when Prop is clumsy.
Oh, shit. See, this guy had 6 rotator surgeries. No.
Oh, he's just spinning in circles. It's going to be a long day.
Yes. I'm tired from yesterday. Ant's on Vicodin and Jimmy's silly. This is going to be great.
Because before the show, the food came, and I know you guys were saying, well, when is it antisocial tickets go on sale? And I didn't want to talk about it.
Yes.
And I'm like, come on, dude. It's all right. Today, Friday, 10 o'clock, the final show goes on sale. Myself, Amy, Artie, and Dave Attell. Saturday, July 20th, in the Sands Casino in Bethlehem, PA, 10 a.m. today. Our tickets go on sale.
Wonderful.
For that second show.
Go see them. They're all very funny.
Amy's on fire.
Yeah, she's great.
Really is.
That show's great. One more call about the documentary you saw.
Sure.
Brian's a little frustrated that you're missing out on some details, I think.
Okay, Brian.
Brian in Illinois, what's up?
Hey guys, Jimmy, I was also fortunate enough to get the screener of the rough cut of TWA 800 from Epics. It is phenomenal. You're absolutely right. I think one area of your argument that you're leaving out in talking to the guys is that it's the lead investigator from the NTSB and the lead investigator from TWA who are the whistleblowers featured in this documentary.
Oh, I didn't know the TWA guy was. Okay.
And, Jimmy, I don't know if you remember the part where the bald gentleman who looks like he's right out of Poltergeist is talking.
Yes.
I could have had the volume on mute and know that he was lying just from his body language.
Yeah, I didn't. I had trouble believing him. Excuse me. And I did give credibility to the guys that were involved in this because they were directly involved. They were handling the evidence.
You could look at it another way, though, and think that, right, you got the head of the NTSB and the head of TWA. If they felt like their toes were being stepped on by the feds coming in on this investigation, of course they're going to be all sour grapes about it and perhaps, have a different opinion than they came up with, saying we could have done a better job if these guys weren't in there. So there could be some animosity there, right?
And to your point, the NTSB guys make a point of saying that it's the first time that they've ever rolled up on an investigation, rolled up on a crash scene, and it was locked down. They said it was like martial law, the way the FBI had and that's a quote from the movie, it's not like a Boston thing. It was martial law, the way that they had the scene tied down.
I guess because they assumed it was terrorism, too. I mean, that's a lot of fucking people. It's a big plane, a major airline.
Yeah,
so.
I get why the FBI was involved. I understand why they did
But there could be some animosity between the agencies because they felt like they were being left out of the mix. So the fact that they're the head of the NTSB and the head of TWA almost helps to refute the conspiracy.
The head of the investigation for the NTSB and the head of the investigation for TWA. Obviously not the CEO of...
Right. Yeah, I hear you.
And that's a good point by Ant. That could be why they, like you said, have sour grapes. There was just too many.
Yeah.
There's enough legit people where you go like, these are all people who...
I'm psyched to see it.
They all understand this stuff in a way that we don't. And they're all people who've examined crash sites before. And like, they're not pulling crazy theories out. Like, they understand how many, I think there's a point when, again, this could be selective editing, where they have never conclusively proven that it was a center fuel tank explosion. Like, that's what they've come to. But there is no smoking gun with that. And they can't say what exactly.
Sometimes that happens too.
Sure,
I mean, you could go with your best assumption of what happened without having 100% confirmation. Jackie, how you doing?
Hi, Jackie. Oh, hon, thank
TGIF,
you.
right, Jackie?
How good do these look? These little blueberries. Oh, and just the yogurt I asked for.
Very good. Look at her, right back to work. She's a dream.
Hold on, sir. We're encouraging the intern.
You got to give positive encouragement to help them.
I've been here for 8 years.
Who are you?
Yeah, what's your name?
You said drool come out? Maybe that's why.
I can't believe what I'm seeing.
You have rosacea and an afro. Well, who would want to talk to you?
All right. Thank you, Brian.
One thing
I'm kidding, Brian. Go ahead.
Is that 48 hours after TWA 800 was the opening ceremonies of the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. That might tell you why you wouldn't want it to be terrorism.
That could be a possible.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. That could be a possible motive. But as the only problem I would have with that, and that's a great point. But it was a 4-year investigation. I mean, it really was a thorough investigation.
Amazing how much of that plane they got up from the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
Fucked up.
One of the guys said he was watching video, and this was hard. Again, an NTSB guy, or whatever he was, watching the video of the underwater footage. And he said he noticed that the time codes had jumped.
Oh, really?
And he said, I'm watching an edited video. And I told the guy from the FBI, I want to see the unedited video. And he said, no.
Wow.
Now, again, I know that sounds very ominous, but these are people who should have access to that, I would think. I get if that was a regular guy, like, I went into the archives and that guy, shut up. But that was a guy actively involved with the investigation.
Yeah,
So
right.
watch it and tell me, I'd be interested to hear what you think.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this.
If you agree
when I
with
watch
me.
it,
If you won't, I wouldn't really be interested too.
Oh,
The reason I wanted to come back, besides the fact I don't want to stagnate, this fucking ant blew me away.
Oh.
Blew me away.
Yeah, I did. I was good at it. He came in my mouth, everything.
Absolutely. And I wanted to get blown at home,
yeah.
too.
That's isolated.
Yes. But the TWA 800 movie is a documentary on epics. It's coming out, July
17th, I want to
17th or something? 27th, something with a 7.
Yeah.
But I saw the preview copy that we have. Oh, boy, we had the whole movie. So Jim watched it, and he said, wow, this really makes you think that something else happened besides this main fuel tank explosion because of a mechanical failure. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard that before, but blah, blah, blah. Boy, this really did a good job of presenting another side of what happened or what might have happened. There's a lot of iffy fucking areas they enter there. It seems a lot of the witnesses saw at least 1, 2, if not 3 missiles come from the water, come up, and hit the plane, or at least explode near the plane, which then rolled over and crashed into the water. And now all this evidence was being manipulated by certain people because the FBI and CIA were involved in the investigation. I guess because they thought it might have been terrorism at first.
Sure.
A lot of weird things with evidence going to other places to be tested when it didn't need to, and disappearing. People that were experts that were just blown off. Testimony from witnesses that was ignored.
Yeah.
And for what reason? Like, I was trying to think, all right, why would they do this? If it's terrorism from another country, you would think they would want that out there.
Especially after all this time, sure.
Right. If it was an accident, a military, U.S. military accident launching missiles from a naval ship, perhaps, that would be so hard to cover up.
Really hard to cover up.
I mean, think about it. I'm not talking the guys that are commanders or something. There's some fucking sailor in his bunk as they're shooting off a missile on one of these ships. You know a missile's going off.
Yeah.
So then he sees in the news that a plane was down. He hears all this scuttlebutt about a crash. He's not going to tell his girlfriend or his family or something.
The whole ship would know.
It's just too... There's too many people that would know. Again, the downfall of every conspiracy. Too many people would know. Not enough people would keep their fucking mouths shut.
Yep.
So how does this fit in? How is this some type of missile attack, and how are they able to keep it so quiet?
My guess is shoulder launched by 1 or 2 people, and maybe the reason they kept it quiet is because they don't want people who do it to see how possible and easy it was to do.
Well, then, why the fuck wasn't it done again?
Because they may have caught the guys who did it quickly. Or they may have been able to shut. But, you know, most of the public might not know that it's that easy to do.
You would think if terrorists launched some Stinger missiles at this thing, they would be like, this is the greatest thing. We just got to go out on a fucking rowboat off of the coast where there's an airport and shoot these things down. You'd think in all these years, what is it, 15 years or whatever it is?
No, it's
longer than that, 20 years, that they would have tried it again. Someone would have.
I know.
It's just I like the way they went through the facts and the testimony from these guys and the witnesses and everything. But the one thing missing is a motive for a cover-up, and who did this and what happened. So
yeah, I mean, they may not have those answers. And I kind of like the fact that they didn't pretend they did have those answers. They don't know exactly what it was. But, you know, the fact that a lot of these people who were towing the company line would not come on and be interviewed. I get the president, the vice president. But, you know, guys like Kellerman from the FBI and all these other guys that would not be interviewed for this. It's like, why? Why wouldn't you if the public is so concerned about it?
That was a pretty amazing part of the movie. It was right at the end where they just list all the people that wouldn't be interviewed for this. And pretty important people as far as the investigation goes. And you would think they would want to know and be involved in any investigation that might bring the truth out. But they weren't talking.
And that shitty CIA animation of the nose falling off.
Yeah, now I bought that until I saw this fucking documentary yesterday. I bought that scenario. And then as you're watching it in this documentary, you feel stupid for thinking that's what happened. It's odd. They do describe it like a 747. The main fuel tank blows up. The fucking nose comes off. You'd think with the speed, and now it's like a fucking pipe going through the air, it would just rip it apart. Like, and then it proceeds to climb.
4,000 more feet.
No one saw the plane climbing. Everyone just saw a fireball coming down. The witness testimony is amazing because it's so consistent from one to another, and they have no reason to lie. So
there's no motive to lie.
So that was an odd part. The hush-hush on part of the FBI and CIA, that's kind of the way they operate with everything. So you can't take every bit of secrecy in there and think it's something sinister.
Terrible, right.
But the things they didn't do is pretty compelling. Not interviewing, not actually taking into consideration what the witnesses said. Another thing that was huge is the fact that the medical examiner and some of the crash forensics people weren't able to draw any conclusions in their report. They were told to just report it, just write it down, hand over what you have to the FBI, and then their analysts will analyze all the evidence that you've gotten. And none of them said that ever happened like that. They would get the evidence and then come up with a conclusion based on what they had found and said, this is what I believe happened. They were told, no, don't do that. Just fucking give us your findings, and we'll draw a conclusion.
We'll draw the conclusion. And these are NTSB people who were involved. Right. These are not fucking
It's their job
lunatics.
is plane crashes.
Yeah, it's what they do.
When a plane crashes, they fucking investigate it. They've been doing it for decades. And then they were told, no, you're not in this one. We'll handle it.
Well, that one piece that went to NASA and got tested, there was something found on the wing, a certain pattern that had to happen at a certain time.
Before the wing came apart.
Before it came apart. And then the guy's like, why didn't you put this in the report? Or why didn't and the guy who was kind of defending the official line, he's like, I don't know why I didn't. He had no answer for it. It was like, that's a big piece of fucking information. Why wouldn't you say that?
Yep.
Oh, look at perfect again.
Oh,
thank you,
Jackie.
I wanted Starbucks, but I didn't specify that. Thank you.
You're not blaming her for that?
How is she? Was she a mind reader?
Come on.
She's just a young lady doing her job.
Yeah, what are you doing? And at least she's doing her job. You're just sitting there.
That's my job.
Yeah, you
never get Dunkin' Donuts.
Fucking lumping around.
Lumping around.
I've been getting Starbucks for like 10 years.
Exactly. That's why I love Jackie, because she says Jim might like something different, and she mixes it up for me.
Exactly.
Jim has never liked anything different.
No, he's very straight.
Oh,
that's why. She brings me out of my shell.
She is a joy.
Yeah?
A joy.
What a delight
to have around
the way
this building.
Breezes in here and she changes us all.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I just wonder.
Delight.
There seems to be direct favoritism.
No, not at all. Anybody that can take me out of my
lady.
comfort zone really challenges me.
You like that?
Love it.
Oh.
Really challenges me.
So, yeah, I'm glad you felt that way, because I was like, fuck, man. Because I was like, I don't know what it was, but I'm like, this is really hard to say that something was not shot up, because all of these people are not, and you don't need a crazy, like, 9/11 conspiracy theorist. You need all these. There's nobody I really respect that was involved in the investigation saying this shit. These are people who, and in '93, the internet was nothing like it is now, so information wasn't thrown around. There's no footage of it.
Yeah, unfortunately for this film, because I went into it like
a doubting Thomas.
You. Yes, I was a doubting Thomas. I went into it like, fuck this. All right, I'll put it on and, see what it's about. And, man, it did. It did just grab me. I was like, okay, there's something to this. But unfortunately, because of things like loose change and these fucking mental patients that just deny the evidence that's right in front of them, I think this might get lumped into that, and people might think that before they see it and be like, oh, fuck you.
It's difficult to be a conspiracy theorist for one theory.
Right, yes.
It's hard to say. No, I think for the most part, everything is as it's reported, except this one.
But that makes sense, though, because that's how it is.
That's more logical.
You don't need to say every conspiracy is right.
And this is like instantly credible to me, because Anthony is the last one
that's
ever gonna.
I don't like that it wasn't credible when I said it, but I do understand that, since I'm the one that kind of brought it up.
Jim's got another one of his theories.
I bought the company line on this one, where this.
I did too,
and it was the CIA's version of what happened,
the animation,
which is so odd. Like, what the fuck is the CIA doing, poking around in a civilian aviation crash that was deemed not terrorism, not a crime in that sense. And they're the ones making up the animation. And all these, not so much subliminal, because that sounds like this weird kind of, we're trying to brainwash you. But there were certain key phrases and graphics that were put up, like when they would say, not a missile, and just reiterate that over and over again, in a way kind of like telling you, hey, don't even consider the missile aspect of this. It's not.
They found
They
found the explosive material on the inside of the plane on certain chairs where it would have been. And their explanation for that was that they had been doing a bomb sniffing drill a week earlier or whatever. But then when they really get into it, they're like, they don't list the plane. They just say a plane. And they say the bomb sniffing drill, if it was this plane that they did it on, would have had to end 15 minutes before takeoff. Which is just not the way it works.
Which, of course, the crew needs just about, give or take an hour prep time. And it didn't work out time-wise. They would have had to left with the explosive and the dog and everything within 15 minutes of when the plane had to leave, which is impossible. So that didn't work out. And again, when you got the CIA and FBI involved in something like this, they can say and change anything really.
They want.
But aren't you worried now that you're like, okay, they lied to me about this. Maybe they lied to me about that.
No. There's no footage. I don't have footage that I can watch over and over again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's are going to be the best of friends now.
I know, right? The fucking bankers, dude. That's who fucking did it. You know that, eh?
I don't understand how you can, just because Jim likes this documentary, you can give this documentary so much credence, but you can't explain the Pentagon.
Yeah, it was. It's obviously a missile that went into the Pentagon. Yeah, all that shit. When they just discount the
same missile,
facts that there are fuselage pieces from an American airline plane on the fucking lawn.
But those are just pieces of something.
I'm just asking questions. we don't really know what happened.
Oh, yeah? How come they didn't find any engine pieces? They did. Here's the fucking... Here's part of the engine. Here's the fucking blades. The turbine blades.
Something. You don't know.
Here's the answer for that. Oh, come on, dude.
Yeah, come on.
Exactly.
And
that is the answer.
They just say, like, nah, nothing happened.
Right. Plus, there's radar of the stuff blowing
Scanners.
off. Oh, fuck! They're fucking DS brothers. Give them the keys to the fucking plane. This is the and there was the radar debris that they show that blew off at a certain speed.
At Mach 4.
I think the difference on this one is you're like, okay, this is making me question the explanation,
right?
And I don't have any evidence that explains this.
Right.
Whereas with all like the 9/11 stuff, you give them, okay, here's exactly what explains this, or the logical part is now easier to believe than the conspiracy theory part. But those theorists are just going, no, I don't know.
Yeah, the 9/11 stuff. It's like you have to take such a leap to go from we had Arab terrorists. Well-financed, long planning went into this, that hijacked planes and flew them into various buildings, killing a lot of people and destroying buildings. That's one scenario. The other one is that for years, an explosives crew was working around in operating buildings with walls and everything, wiring it for a fucking planned, controlled demolition with secretaries and fucking financiers.
Also, there's a plane full of people on their way to Washington, D.C., they're just on Lost Island somewhere.
Right, they put them on the Lost Island.
Yeah.
Because and you're supposed to now throw away the easy explanation, the logical one, the one that doesn't have one thing in it that really doesn't make sense, and accept this amazing story of conspiracy
fake phone calls,
fake phone calls, and something that a James Bond movie wouldn't attempt. And now the Flight 800 thing doesn't present you with this bizarre, unbelievable scenario that could have happened and a simple one. They're both equally as viable, and with the evidence and then lack of evidence, you do steer closer to the one with the missile than you do the exploding center fuel tank.
A couple of guys with Stinger missiles, whatever the shoulder launch ones are, and the reason for keeping it quiet is because if you show that works, it panics the public in a horrendous way. And baby, by the way, that's how you get, maybe people say, how do you get the airline industry to sign off on that, a lie, and say that it's an explosion when it's really a Stinger missile? Because the point to the airline industry may be, what will happen if this comes out that it was a missile is airline business will plunge beyond repair. An explosion, people know, is an ultra rare event, but if you all of a sudden fucking announce publicly that Stinger missiles can take down airlines, you're going to lose 40% of your business.
No matter how rare a missile being fired at a commuter airplane is, the fact that it's a possibility would make people stop flying.
And maintenance can't fix that.
Right.
Maintenance can fix whatever this problem was. People understood intuitively the 747s are older planes. It never happened before. All right, this is a fluke. A missile in this day and age? Fuck. That's amazing. So maybe that's why people say why the airline industry signed on. That could be a motive for the airline industry to have taken the hit and said, okay, we're taking this evil instead of this horrible evil.
But now the airline industry, who is that now has to be in collusion with the FBI and CIA? Who's the person? Did they even talk to anybody?
Maybe somebody at Boeing.
Yeah, Boeing has to, somebody at Boeing has to go, look, I could be sacrificing this entire company right now if this gets out and they figure that I and Boeing as a company was involved in this kind of conspiracy against American people. You're talking a company ruining problem there.
But again, it's never said. You know, maybe it's done much. Maybe the FBI and CIA. What do you think that Boeing can talk to them if the NTSB can't? They may say this is our conclusions. You know, there's ways to say things without implicating yourselves. And I know this is conspiracy shit, but that does make sense to me as to what the motive would be of the airline industry for not fighting it completely or demanding public. They may not have been said, hey, look, guys, this is what it is. But they may have said, well, let's hope it's not a Stinger missile because that's going to cost the airline industry 40% of your revenue in the next 10 years.
You know, another odd thing, you would think, all right, they want a cover-up story. They go with the center fuel tank exploding story. Why then don't they just go the whole route and come up with the conclusion? It was an inconclusive ignition source. They said the center fuel tank exploded, but they never really had a conclusion as to what ignited it. Now, what's the reasoning for them not having the end game, the story, like it was a short circuit on this fucking wire that blew that? They were like, yeah, the center fuel tank ignited, but we have no evidence of anything. We're not sure. Sorry.
Because if it's vague, it's harder to disprove. Like, there was a guy that said...
very good, yeah.
There was one guy who said, well, in order for that to ignite, you would need this many amps, and there's nothing with that many amps in the center fuel. Like, there are people that know. So if you put it on, hey, look, it's wire 72. To me and you, that's like, well, that's the game. But to people in that industry, they're like, no, cunt face.
Right, okay.
Wire 72 eats a bag of dicks and could never have done. There's too many people that
little element of deniability in there.
Yes. Well, we think it was, and that's good enough for the public. Wow. But you give 100% specific, and somebody can absolutely go, no,
you're lying.
Your smoking gun is a lie.
Wow, very good. Because that's a part that got me too. It's like they made this whole story, but left out the part that lit the whole thing.
Sure, and they had to admit that they didn't know that.
Yeah.
They had to admit that.
The final hearing there, they finally went. Yeah, they said we don't know. Sorry.
And this is all. And again, it could have just been a couple of handhelds, or I mean, I'm not saying the government did it. Because don't forget, they've gone after Stinger missiles and people selling them after that hardcore.
Yeah,
they may have just kept that stuff a little quieter for the reasons that they couldn't keep 9/11 quiet.
You'd think they would have been very petrified that it would happen again. It would be obvious that it this time was a missile that took down a plane, and now you have to explain what happened to this 747 because the similarities are so similar that they now can't use that center tank. And then you find out that they did nothing to defend the people against the Stinger missiles. Now you're opening yourself up for a lot more damage than just saying, oh my God, people, Stinger missile.
Yeah, you are. But again,
it's a gamble.
There's also and I know that they showed exactly how that hard rudder snapped in the American Airlines flight in November of 2001. But under the same logic, how do you get the airline industry to implicate themselves instead of a terrorist? Let's just say that was the first shoe bomb. Let's say that was some kind of an onboard device after 9/11. The airline industry may have said, a mechanical failure in this case is much less damaging than realizing we've been targeted again and got hit again. They may have looked at, all right, X amount of lawsuits for this compared to $6 billion in lost revenue.
Right.
Because people will just start taking the fucking train, or they'll start flying JetBlue, which doesn't have an American. Who knows what the thinking is? But that's to me how you get a big business to fucking sign on to taking a bit of a hit.
But you would think somebody in that conference room would eventually.
But it may never be. It may
something,
never
you know?
be said like that. It may never be in a conference room. It literally may be the one or two people that need to make that decision at the airline or at Boeing, where you say this is. It could be this or it could be that. Where you're basically telling them something, but you're not telling them.
I understand what you mean, but there is this just. Faith that you have that no one's going to talk, and then the conclusion that they don't. Like, that to me is the most amazing part of any conspiracy. It's so hard to keep your fucking yap shut about anything.
The government can't stop whistleblowers.
Yeah,
obviously.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, they have a few people, but they've kept some stuff quiet. Like, you're right, but there are things that when there's only a few people that know, and they're in that line of work, they can keep. People in the FBI and the CIA, there's a million things they've never talked about. The whistleblowers make it look like nothing's safe, but there's enough shit that they've kept quiet when only the right people know. I mean, look at how long fucking certain people have gotten away with certain things. And then you're like, oh my, like Bernie Madoff, look at how long he pulled off what he pulled off.
Yeah.
Until the market started shitting the bed, but no one blew the whistle on him. Even though he was, you know what I mean? He fucking had to tell his sons. Blow the whistle on me so you're not implicated.
Such a conspiracies are the facts and everything. It could all add up, but that human element is the weak link in the chain. It's
and that's what drives you crazy, because you get all wrapped up in them, and you're like, okay, yeah, that works, and then you find the one little thing, and the whole theory is
Sure.
it just blows up.
You have to be willing to let that happen too, and that's where conspiracy theorists lose me. Is the one piece of legit evidence they don't go with, or the one piece of nonsense in their theory they don't just discount. They become married to the agenda. All those people saying they saw something shooting up at that plane, every one of them could not have a mass hallucination.
Yeah, that was the
spin.
most compelling part of the documentary, if you ask me, is that the witnesses saying that they saw something coming up at the plane. And it wasn't a fiery color. It was bright white, they were saying, almost a silvery, that you would get out of a rocket engine, coming up, not at a certain point in the sky. It was coming up from the fucking ground, from the horizon, from the level of that. So it wasn't in the sky. It wasn't another plane. It wasn't the other plane giving an illusion because it's flying toward you that it's going up a little bit. How do you just throw that out as an investigator? It just, to me, seems like that's a very important part of the fucking...
And it was a 4-year investigation. So I think that if there's any type of a cover-up or any type of I think it's with very few people and with plausible deniability. And again, in this one, because they never said this is exactly what it is, they haven't left themselves a smoking gun.
And what about, I'm reading some of the questions down here, taking credit. Why hasn't anyone taken credit for this? You get a terrorist organization that got its hands on Stinger fucking missiles and shot down one of the biggest planes that fly, full of Americans, and French, I know that. Why wouldn't you be fucking tooting your horn like, look what we did?
Take credit and try to do it again.
Yeah, and we're gonna, it's scary. I mean, terrorism works on the act and the fear that it makes. If they said, and we have more and we're gonna do it again, you ruin the airline industry.
You can't allow a cover-up.
No.
Maybe maybe it was an offshoot group, and maybe they rounded up who was responsible relatively quickly. Or maybe they were Americans. Maybe they were Americans who were not doing it for foreign terror. Who the fuck knows? Maybe somebody on that flight was targeted. But then again, you wouldn't know which plane that was. That's probably bullshit.
Yeah, it's just, it seems to me that the people that are keeping quiet would talk,
right?
And the people that would talk are keeping quiet. It doesn't on a human level, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't. To be honest, that's a good question about why wouldn't they take credit?
Didn't you say unless it was some weird coincidental government testing thing that accidentally blah blah?
No, I think they would admit to that. I think yes,
would admit to that. If
somebody would admit to it. Yeah, and I don't think the airline industry would sign off on that. I don't think the airline industry.
Oh, because they'd know it's your fault, not our fault.
Yeah, and
you're going to get blamed on this,
and that won't hurt our business.
Right.
A government mistake that never happens. People would still fly.
Right.
But a fucking Stinger missile would shut down business.
Yeah, I just wonder what the purpose of it was, if that's what it was.
Yeah. Like, who would do that? Why wouldn't you take credit if you were doing it on purpose?
Was it any kind of revenge? When did the U.S. shoot down that Iranian plane by mistake? There was an Iranian passenger. We looked it up, said there was an Iranian passenger plane shot down by the United States over the ocean. And they shot, it was a horrifying death. They shot one of the wings off, and then another missile went up.
Whoops.
And as it fell, people on the ship are going, oh my God, that's a passenger plane.
Yeah.
That was 88.
88.
Yeah.
So 5 years earlier.
No, wasn't the TWA 93?
93.
Okay.
What ship was that? The Carl Vincent? Which?
But still, you'd think that
someone would take credit. You don't just do that and then keep it quiet.
Right.
Who knows how many people it was, though? What if it was a small...
they just killed 10 people on a mountain in Pakistan and immediately took credit for it.
It's also easier to get stuff out now than it is.
That's true.
20 years ago. Now it's much easier to get out your information than it was. Al Jazeera didn't exist 20 years ago, I don't think. And you know what I mean? It was a little bit of a slower trigger pull to an action to when everybody knew about it. There was still a lapse in time.
You think there's like an admission tape stuck in the mail somewhere?
Oh man, right?
It got sent to the wrong person.
To the bottom of CNN's mail bin. We never opened this.
Yeah, someone named Alfred Akbar. Throw it out.
What the hell could this be?
Again, this is all who knows, but I think it was a little harder to get immediate information out. And the FBI and CIA, who knows? They may have already had information that this type of thing was happening, and they may have already been looking at certain people, and then it just got snuck under their radar and happened. Who the fuck knows what was going on?
The speculation that goes into something like this, I mean, it's never ending.
But none of that stuff is that crazy.
No, the actual facts and the interviews and everything isn't that crazy. It's the speculation that has to be put in to support some of it, and that's where it gets crazy. You know? All right, missile. You don't just fucking come up with missiles. They have to come from somewhere.
Sure.
You know, these things, and there's a paper trail, information trail, a money trail as to what's going on. You know, where this came from. That it would seem like somebody could get a hold of it.
You seem like you could trace a missile. At least to some extent.
Something. You know? Yeah. Right.
Well, maybe they did.
Maybe.
Or at least there is a lost missile. I guess that must be it.
That could be our lost missile.
That's the one we lost. God damn it.
And there's no reason for them to come out now and say it. It's dead. The official explanation, it's done.
Well,
maybe they shut down whatever pipeline they had to, whatever was happening with that. Who knows? I mean, again, if all those people didn't see it, I wouldn't think this.
You do need a motive to not give the American people the correct answer to it.
Because they just can't come out and go, we lied. They just won't do that.
Well, now it's really fucked up. I mean,
right? Someone may now.
Now you'd be like, yeah, we lied. What? It would fuck.
Yeah. Right. So now you gotta get the heat for it actually happening, and for lying about it.
And for lying about it.
That's double punishment.
But you have double punishment. but you have enough people talking about it who are legitimate, who were involved in the investigation.
Yeah.
So it's really hard just to write off.
And so many people have said, well, experts have said that didn't happen, this couldn't happen, that. It's like experts, they could be lying too. You know, like
just
what
wrong.
Experts? Or wrong.
They're just a person.
Yeah.
I'd love to get people from the documentary or somebody in. Because
maybe we can after it airs.
Once it airs, yeah.
I thought it was very well done. It wasn't, I never felt like I was watching some kooky fucking internet conspiracy thing. And fucking Lee Harvey Oswald, you could see photoshopped in his foot. And then, okay, whatever.
Yeah, they're using some radar evidence, which they had. But that's another thing. Why did they have to fucking sue to get all the information?
Yeah.
They had to sue to get every piece of information on a domestic fucking freak engine accident?
That's just it.
Why?
When you get fucking the CIA and FBI involved, you know, you get all the redacted paperwork, and if you do get it, and then you get the denials of getting anything. I think they do that on purpose, just so when they really do have something they don't want you to see, it's like, oh, they do that with everything.
But nobody was plugging Infowars.com throughout the documentary.
Obviously a conspiracy. You could tell it wasn't the main fuel tank. It's got to be a missile.
He would be interesting on this one, though, because
see the evidence.
See the evidence right there on Infowars.com. false flag operation to bring down the thing. It was in order to get us in a war with Mexico. What?
Huh?
We should tomorrow, probably, because, I would love to talk to Alex.
Or maybe
how great would it be?
when more people have seen the
Oh, yeah, why tomorrow?
How great would it be if we called him and he was like, no, the official story is the story on that one.
Yeah.
It was a Stinger missile.
If you say, no, it was fuel tank.
Yeah, fuel tank blew up.
It was short circuit, blew up the plane. No. It's not a missile.
The conspiracy there is the documentary being made.
Conspiracy's the conspiracy.
And those fucking bodies, how some were intact and some were mangled, when they all should have been, if it was the center fuel tank, all the bodies should have been fucked up in that area, and they weren't.
They show some of those bodies on the documentary. Oh, my God. And then even the x-rays they were showing, like they have an x-ray and they showed some metal fragments inside the body, but also what you could see are like ribs that are just completely smashed and tangled up. And
I feel so bad for the people that had to fall. There's no way you think you're living through that.
You don't want to do that.
Imagine being in that because if you were like, say, in the last row of coach, where you were unaffected by those explosions. Yeah. You died when you hit the ground.
You're like,
that's always something that stuck out with 9/11 to me, was the people that were falling. Like the same thing.
Do you have out of the building?
Do you have a fraction of an element of like, I might make this. I might stick this landing.
Or like, you're falling and being like,
if I hit that tree,
I could have done something differently.
Look, there was the rope. Right,
that's the thing. When we had the dude from the Bridge documentary on, who said he jumped off the bridge, and he said the first thing you think about as you're falling is, this was a horrible mistake.
This probably wasn't good. Yeah, you don't want to think that.
Yeah, but they were driven out of the building like animals. Like it was an instinct thing to get away from 1,000-degree heat or whatever.
Yeah, that's
not. You got to make that.
It's not a conscious decision.
In that kind of heat, you just jump. It's
you just
too
have
much.
to move away from the heat, no matter what's.
I would just stick my head out the window.
What's there? Yeah, that's all that would be like
But you know what I mean? It's like the agony of being on fire or being slowly baked. It's almost like as you're falling, I'm sure that but I don't think you seem like an animal at that point. Like it's instinct and primal fire.
Fire's horrible.
It stinks.
It hurts.
You've had time to think about it. When like you're saying in this crash, you're sitting in your seat 1 minute. And then the next minute, you're going to fall into the ocean.
But you're falling 13 times the distance that they fell. And you can't, you have no reason to be, like you're not in physical distress yet.
Yeah, boy. Yeah.
You're just falling.
Yeah, you were just watching a movie.
You think some guy is just sitting there with his legs crossed reading like Sky Mall, licking his finger, turning the pages.
I'll go down in honor.
Looking at him like, what the fuck is he doing? Yeah, like the fucking band on the Titanic.
Right. Can you imagine the fucking scene, the front of that plane gone? There's no convincing yourself you're going to live.
Still eating that tiny little salad with the greens and one tomato in it.
Maybe the pilot can bring this in. You got to always have this element of, I don't know, maybe it won't hit so hard.
Pushing the stewardess button. Excuse me.
You're just falling. To see the pilots falling off the front.
Oh,
you imagine seeing because by numerically there had to be one row that was alive, that was closest to the opening.
Looking like, oh, that's interesting. The whole fucking flight deck just ripped away from this plane. I don't think that's supposed to happen.
Do you think they did get ripped open quickly? Because you don't think they just fucking fell like with the tube? You think that the wind ripped it apart?
I would assume if the front of a plane comes off at cruising speed.
But they were just getting up to that.
They were just getting up.
They were
well,
13,000 climbing.
13,000 feet on that. They're doing a couple of hundred. They're going pretty fucking fast. You would think that open tube with air rushing in, the pressure would blow it apart. You would assume the pressure would blow it apart.
You hope that people died or passed out.
Yeah.
You hope so. I'm sure there were some heart attacks and some pass outs. but I'm sure some people were there.
Some real fucking hardcore people that are just like, oh, fuck, I'm still...
Yeah.
This
Like
is
the
great.
only thing I have to compare to that is being in the front row of a roller coaster when you're about to go over the hump.
You think you
know?
go wee?
Yeah, no, but I'm saying like,
Wee!
like,
Do you think
like
someone
that-
threw their arms up in the air?
Hands up!
Where's the camera? I want to make a face.
Yeah. Let me rephrase your question. I have nothing to compare this to.
That's terrible. That's awful.
You're just holding a silly face the whole time. I don't know where the camera is.
Yeah, exactly.
Funny.
It's kind of like a log flume, except you're plunging to your death in a fiery plane.
Chick is showing her tits. No, you're not
I didn't say it was the same feeling.
Oh.
I said it's just, like you said, there had to have been a front row when that plane,
Like there has to be a front row on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So here's the comparison.
Right.
Like a roller coaster, there were seats. There were human beings and seats involved.
Yeah.
Very much like a roller coaster or an office or a movie theater.
Do you think being impaled by 50 spears is the same as a merry-go-round? Because I would think it's just the same thing.
Right.
No?
I mean, I know.
Fast merry-go-round.
I once stood online for an iPhone.
Ah.
So it's like, I know what it's like to crash in an airplane.
Right, exactly.
It's like you see the front of the line and you go, they're getting their phones first.
Yeah,
Just
this
like
is going
it.
to take a while,
Right.
just like me falling.
Travis's explanations of everything.
Perfect.
It's good.
Yeah, that was really good. But I almost thought you were there for a second, especially when you heard the plane going. Tick, 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 tick. Whee!
Yeah.
The horror of that.
You don't even want to.
Of looking out that fucking
imagine.
gaping hole. Imagine seeing the fucking sky and feeling the outside air.
It's
Yeah, but you're strapped into the seat on it. You're just going to go down, and then you'll be back.
Yeah.
where you started.
Yeah, that's just
Not that scary.
The horror of being ripped out at 13,000 feet.
I'd want a parachute. Yeah, that would be great if you thought like beforehand and went like, I put a parachute on. Fuck is all.
Perfect.
I'm out, motherfuckers.
So I'm sure that being ripped out wouldn't happen violently, and you wouldn't rip your leg off on a fucking piece of metal.
Exactly.
Sir, you have to put your parachute under the seat? No, I'll be wearing it the whole
No,
flight.
I got
thank
it
you.
on. You fucking put it under your seat, dummy.
Yeah, you wonder if anybody was like getting ripped out. Like, how long do you live? Or the whole time, or do you pass out from the air? Is it hard to breathe?
Yeah,
you
because
can't...
when you're that high up, isn't the air quality?
Yeah, 13,000. You could breathe.
But I was going to say,
thin,
once you're
but-
falling, the air rushing, but people parachute from 10,000 feet and they
They're
live.
fine.
Yeah.
They
You
just
just
have
gotta,
goggles on.
you gotta hold on to the bottom of your seat and use it as a flotation device as soon as you hit.
As you go down.
Yeah,
Just
you'll
get
be
into
fine.
cannonball position.
What do you think?
Yeah.
A perfect dive would be better into the water, or a big belly flop from 13,000 feet?
What do you do in that time? Because yelling and screaming, like when they
Probably get
jump,
exhausted.
do you stop screaming?
Yeah.
Because
Like,
9/11, it was 12 seconds. 12 seconds it took them to fall, approximately. That's a long, maybe 10 seconds. I mean, that's a long time, but it's not that long. It's fucking, by the time you're done screaming, you hit the ground.
13,000 feet, you've got a lot of time to think.
You're just in a plane, you're listening to the music, you're watching a movie, and then the next thing you're just going whoosh, falling in the air. Just so like, what happened?
There are people.
What just happened?
They're listening to us this morning.
Yeah.
They're taking flights.
Sorry.
And we just spent a half hour talking about what it's like to
it's
be in a
terrible.
plane crash.
But if it took, say, 9
No,
seconds
we're
to fall 1,000 feet, what's 13 times 9? 130, 117 seconds.
Oh, boy.
Is almost 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They fell for almost 2 minutes.
Wow.
It's horrible.
That's a long 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I bet. Look at this parade of people.
Yeah.
What is this about?
This is
Movie
This
people?
is the big buzz that my acting is going to be showcased.
Oh, is that what it is? Ooh,
Yeah.
who's the blonde? Hi there, honey. How you doing? Hey, look at that. Hey.
So ready to go. Hey, how you doing, sweetie? Come on in. Be a part of the movie.
I'm giving the guy the double pistol
Hey,
finger thing.
double
He-
pistol.
Boom, boom, boom.
I gotta piss again.
You could have said double guns on that one.
Double pistols.
guns.
You got to incorporate whatever's happening.
Double
Piece
pistols.
of fucking garbage.
Any timeline on when they're
Anytime now.
coming back?
Whatevs.
No.
What
I'm
else?
ready for the fucking movie.
You can't be in it.
You ready
Chris
for-
Rock. Hey, how about you name this Chris Rock and roll? We'll play some fucking music.
That's probably a great fucking line.
E-Rock, are you going to be in the movie?
Oh, God.
No, Chef.
Oh.
Good.
Oh, he's not.
I don't want you in my fucking movie.
It's not
No.
your movie.
No. I'm trying to get some updates on the...
Although you would do Chip or Uncle Paul if Chris Rock were in here. So I feel like you should try to pull off a little Chip in the film. See if it makes it.
No, because we're going to be part of a montage. So anytime I go, it's going to be Chris is going to be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, but how great would it be if there was a what's that?
What's that?
What's that? See if
it would be great for us.
See if it makes it into the film.
How great would it be for my career? Not particularly. Because I don't like when you're shooting a feature film when you throw in private radio jokes that don't help the script at all.
Yeah, but what if this launches Chip?
Exactly. Stop being selfish.
Yeah.
Then I would
think about Chip.
Chip is going to be launched.
This is the next He Stinks and I Don't Like Him, okay?
Yeah.
This is your big moment.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it. And stop being selfish.